Hey guys, I hope you're doing well. Today, I have a super special interview for you to take on in this episode of the Get Real Self Defense podcast. The person I am interviewing today is Benny the Jet Urquidez. Born in 1952, Benny the Jet Urquidez is a former professional kickboxer, fighter, martial artist, and true original mixed martial arts fighter before mixed martial arts was even a thing. Nicknamed the Jet for his amazing spinning back kick that has laid out more than one opponent at a myriad of different fighting competitions throughout his long and illustrious career. Benny the Jet Urquidez was born to a mother who was a professional wrestler and a father who was a professional boxer. His siblings also had black belts and world championship titles in various athletic disciplines. Benny himself has earned 9 different black belts in different martial art disciplines and is also trained in a myriad of other martial arts styles. In 1974, Benny the Jet decided to pursue his full contact career in martial arts fighting. He achieved a record of over 200 wins and no losses during that time period. He also had 63 title defenses and 57 KOs. He's also the only fighter in the world of anything to have retained 6 different world titles in 5 different weight classes at the same exact time. And he did this all in a span of 24 consecutive years. Benny the Jet himself has also done a myriad of different movies, as well as actually doing a world famous fight scene with Jackie Chan on a movie called Wheels on Meals. He's also a martial arts instructor who has written a myriad of books, including his own personal book called The Jet, which documents his life story that you can actually check out in the description below. And I'm so excited to share this interview with you guys. Benny the Jet Urquidez, let's go. Sensei Benny the Jet, welcome to the show, brother. How are you doing today?
Well, it gets any better than this. It gets scary. Yeah, it's wonderful. Thank you.
Excellent. So, like I said before we even started, I'm really excited to have you on because I've been following you my entire life. My father was actually the person that brought me on to learning about you and your accomplishments in the martial arts and overall just fighting circuit. You pioneered majority of the sport. And so for those that don't know you and don't know your background, can you just give a quick 30,000 overhead view on some of the highlight points of your journey and experience in martial arts and sport fighting?
Well, back in the 60s, I started actually, my first fight was in 58. My last fight was in 95. So I have, I started actually, my mother was a professional wrestler, my father, professional boxer, 9 black belts in my family, 4 champions in my family. So did I have a choice? When kids had fire trucks at 3, I had boxing gloves. So I was already competing in 58 Pee Wee division boxing. So by the time in 60 I started judo, and then 63 I started Kempo Karate with Birozaki, and then I started with Mr. Ed Parker in 64, 65. I started at the internationals and so forth, and working for him. And at the time that I was working for him, obviously he was working with Elvis Presley. But for myself, what we did is my first actually compete. When I first saw Bruce Lee, that was actually probably in '64 at the internationals, and I saw him doing the 4-finger strike and internal strike. Because my mother was used to talk about internal power, never understood what she was talking about until Bruce Lee. And in '64, he was talking about internal power, how he raised, and he actually hit this guy 6', 6'3", 240 pounds, holding a metal plate on him, and he struck him, went 4 feet back, fell over, and I jumped up and I said, I want to do that. And to tell you the truth, because of that, I wanted to spar with him, and my brother told me, my oldest brother Arnold told me I don't have enough experience. So I actually fought every tournament I could just so I can spar with him, and I beat every tournament there was. And he said, I still don't have enough experience. So in '69, there was Actually, Elvis Presley started a team with Mr. Parker, and he got the best out of everybody in the United States. And I happened to be the youngest and the smallest on the team, so I beat everybody there was. So when I became on the Elvis Presley team, we actually I was young. We end up in Belgium, and everybody was talking about who's going to fight Lemons, and I said I'll fight him. So they all look at me, figuring that I would be the sacrifice lamb. I ended up beating Lemons, and then we went to England, beat and Germany, and so forth. Came back, and I told my brother, "Now can I spar with Bruce Lee?" And he said, "I don't have enough experience." So I couldn't believe what he was telling me. So after that, so I started boxing professionally. I figured, okay, that's it. I'm gonna show that I deserve. And then in '73, full contact karate came in, and I kept on saying, "What the heck's full contact karate?" And he said it's to the knockout. And the main thing I said, "I won't get disqualified." He said, "It's to the knockout." I said, "But I won't get disqualified." I couldn't get that through my head that he meant to the knockout. Now we're talking about no rules, no weight divisions, no nothing. So we went to Hawaii, my brother, my brother-in-law, and myself. And when I first fought the first guy, he he must have been at least 200 pounds and 6'1". I stopped him in the first round, and I said, "Okay, now they're going to disqualify me." And they raised my hand. I said, "All right, they didn't disqualify me." So that day, I stopped 7 people that day. And the next day, I was supposed to fight 6 more, but the other ones didn't want to fight, so I ended up fighting 4 more times. And I ended up fighting Burns White, a Marine champion, incredible strength, and I stopped him in the third. And so then it was just my brother-in-law was supposed to fight Dana Goodson, 6'3", 245 pounds. He's the Hawaiian favorite, and they didn't want to see me fight my brother-in-law. So I told my brother-in-law, if you don't knock him out or stop him, you're not going to win, because they don't want to see you and me fight. They want to see David and Goliath fight. They want to see me fight Dana Goodson. So sure enough, he went the distance, and so I ended up fighting Dana Goodson, and I didn't realize how big he was. And I got in there, and I was looking up at him, and he had this smile. So he thought I was going to run from him. I ran right at him. And I just grabbed him. I started striking at him like if I was a leech sucking on his blood, and he couldn't get me off him. And finally, um, in the third round, he just started elbowing me on my behind my. I must have lost 2 inches. And it's just he hit me so hard with an elbow, downward elbow on my behind my neck. So I picked him up, threw him on the ground, jumped up, stomped him. I pinned him, and I spit my mouthpiece out, and he started to throw me over, and I bit him in the chest, and he palm struck my forehead, and took my face, and I jumped up, and he said, "You bit me," and I had my teeth mark on his chest, and I said I was getting tired. Anyway, I stopped him, and after I stopped him, that was my first international title, no rules, no weight divisions, no nothing. And if you want to call that the UFC and so forth, because back then there was no rules, there was no weight divisions, there was nothing. So I took that title. I came home and told my brother, now I deserve to spar with Bruce Lee. And then after a while, then he passed away. I never had a chance to, but at least, all the guys before me got me ready in the '60s, got me ready for exactly that, and the rest is history.
Yeah, that is just super cool. I mean, just hearing about how that was your motivation. I think that is actually something, even with all the times that I've been following you and watching your footage and watching interviews, that Bruce Lee was like, seeing that in the Long Beach International was like the driving force for you to push forward and just train all the time and fight all the time. So having the background that you have, you said that your parents, you had one that was a wrestler, one that was a boxer. You were doing Pee Wee division at, 5 years old with boxing. With all that, your whole family is just super accomplished in combat and martial arts and all that. So, where do you think did you get your mental toughness and your resolve to fight anybody and win because of your family upbringing, or was that something that you trained over time? How did that work for you?
Well, for me, I really never had fear. I never had a fear base. My mother, was so internal. She was always talking about the power, talking about how to generate this power. And 80% of it was mental. And so the 20% of it is physical. I was already, my whole family, we were running, we trained 3 times a day. When I was very young, we ran when the sun came up. We ran 6 in the morning before the sun was coming up. We were running in the dark when the sun was coming up. At 12 o'clock, when the sun was over our head, between, you know, Father Sky and Mother Earth, man, we were right between. We were doing all our sparring, hitting all the heavy work, combat. And then when the sun was coming down, 6 o'clock at night, we did all the meditation. We would meditate and so forth. And my mother had to do with all the internal training. My father was the external. My father was very physical. He was the kind of guy, okay, you go out there, and he liked the toughness of us. And so I don't know if you know what stickers are back then. We used to actually box barefooted on these stickers
Mhm.
on our, and used to show his friends how tough we were. But that my father was a very external, but very, very tough when it came to warfare, and boxing and so forth. My mother was always the opposite. My father is the one that taught me, you want respect, put fear in people. So I put fear in everybody. Why? Because I wanted respect. And my mom pulled me aside and said, why are you doing that? And I said, well, because I want respect. Dad told me if I want respect, I have to put fear in them. And so my mother said, you know what? They don't respect you. They're just afraid of you. So I started to understand between the internal power and the external power. My external power was from my father. My internal power was from my mother.
That's
So,
awesome. It's almost like yin yang, like just you had one that was very like external, one internal, and you got to balance from that. That's super cool. So you said something interesting, and that was that 80% is mental and 20% is physical. And so you talked about meditation in your routine with training at home. How much did meditation play in the mental game, or were there other aspects that created that mental resolve for yourself so that you could accomplish things at that 80%?
well, the mind controls the body, which houses your spirit. So, 80% of it is mental, 20% of it is physical, 99.9% of it is internal, which is emotional, is what everybody hides. It's almost like when you tell somebody, how are you feeling? Oh, another day in paradise. And then you look at them and say, well, how are you really feeling? And they look at you saying, well, I don't know you that well to tell you how I really feel. So a lot of people hide things. Like my father, he said, don't show fear, don't show you're afraid, don't show, anger, don't show any emotion. So I never showed emotions because of that, because I didn't want people to think that I was weak mentally or physically or spiritually. So I believe that in the mental part of it is the I am concept of what do you believe to be true to you. And so to me, I'm not afraid to die. I never have been. So what can anybody possibly do to me? Shoot me, stab me, what? I'm not afraid to die because to me, eh, if I would look at it, I said today is a good day to die. Not that I want to die, but I'm
Sure.
not afraid of dying. In other words, I'm not afraid to live because most people, are most people that are afraid of dying is because they're afraid of living. And so I live the opposite way. I live my life one day at a time to the fullest. And if my maker should come for me, I have no regrets. Why? Because I lived that life to the fullest. To this day, I'm still that way. So the internal training is about, I have nothing to hide. What you see is what you see. I don't hide anything because there's nothing to hide. I don't have that fear. And I am not afraid to try something. In other words, I trust in me that I can handle anything that comes my way.
No, that's very good. So when it comes to your training, obviously you've trained many years, and you've done various different martial arts styles. You talked about, for instance, how um, you mentioned a little bit about the UFC, where it was actually like back when you guys were doing it, it was like actual no holds barred and whatnot. There's not the rule set that they have today. Uh, Today's day and age, and I brought this up a little bit earlier before the interview started. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm asking you for is, to me, there seems to be a disconnect in some ways with martial arts today and the street and like self-defense. And I think a big part of it is the mental that you brought up. But when it comes to the like mixed martial arts and traditional martial arts and then actual self-defense for the street, what is your opinion on I guess, the pulse of of the economy when it comes to translating what you train in the gym versus being out in the street and having somebody actually accost you? Is there any disconnect from before versus now, like as far as training goes, or mentally? What's your opinion on that? Is there any disconnect at all?
Well, I'll sum it up very easily. Basically, when it comes down to it, in the martial arts, of all I've been around this world many times,
Mhm.
I see in the martial arts that most people train in the martial arts, there is a control environment. In other words, there's a safety because you can't really go and do it hardly, or should I say, do it for real in the dojo because there's always a sensei going to stop you. If it gets out of hand, they're going to stop you because they don't want a lawsuit. They don't want their doors to be closed. So it's a control environment in the dojos. So most of the training in martial arts was more mental, the discipline, the respect, the honor system, and so forth. It was more that because you couldn't really train for real. You trained technique, you did technique, and it come at you this and that, and you will work the takedowns. But if it got out of hand, sensei will stop it.
Mhm.
It would be stopped. In the street, nobody's stopping nothing unless the police officer happens to see it or so. There is no stop. It's the real deal. In other words, you're going to go out there and they're going to be a threat. So anytime you're threatened, I don't care who you are, if you're threatened, everything that you hide under your bed in your closet will come up. Anger, fear, frustration, anxiety, all these emotions come up. And if those emotions come up, they block you. They block you from actually, because if you get angry, all you're doing is seeing an object and you're going after it, and you're not seeing what's coming at you. All you know is you're going after a target when you're angry. When you're feared, it blinds you. When you're frustrated, it blinds you. When you
Mhm.
have anxieties, it stops you. So in the dojos, when you're trained, and if you're not trained under pressure, eh, then the reality of it is when you're out in the street and I've had a couple of black belts and they got robbed and they got hurt, and I said, "You're a black belt. What happened?" And they said, "You know what? I froze." I said, "What do you mean you froze? You're a black belt. How could? What do you mean you froze?" And he said, "I don't know. I got attacked, this and that, and son, I froze." I said, "But in the gym," he said, I'm a good fighter. I know that, but in the gym, it looks great. But the moment they threatened me out there, I didn't have time to think, and I froze." So right now, it's either you fight, you flight, or you freeze. And most people are freezing right now. So that's the difference between in the art and how you've been trained, in the sport and how you've been trained, in the street, how you've been to look at it, how you feel about the street part of it. So most people will see danger and they will walk across the street just to go around it. Okay?
Yeah,
And to me, I'm not going to walk around anybody. Okay?
sure.
And I'm not looking for it, but if it's in front of me, so be it. I live my life one day at a time with no fear whatsoever. Okay? And so I know in the art, if you've been trained really properly, it's like training you to have a gun and you take that gun apart and you put it together. You take it apart and you put it together and you got it. And then you open up the chamber. And when you open up that chamber, every bullet in there is experience of what you've been taught to be known to you that's true. And when you close that chamber, you're responsible for it.
Mhm.
That is the art, a true art of self-defense, is where you have a loaded gun and you're responsible for it.
No,
So,
that's a great way to put it. One of the things that I find very interesting is that you talked about this guy who had frozen, and he's a black belt and whatnot, and he froze. And you talked about fight, flight, and freeze as a trainer, because you've also trained a lot of accomplished fighters, and you still train and teach to this day. What do you do to prepare them for that situation as you're training? You're teaching them kickboxing, Yukitokon, whichever it is that you choose to teach at that moment, a principle of motion. Um, as a trainer, as you're teaching them, what kind of things are you trying to look for to make sure that they are prepared so they won't freeze when they are out in the street?
well, first of all, you have three different type people that teaches. You have a trainer. Hey, to me, not all trainers, but a lot of trainers that I've seen, they look at something and say, "Ooh, I like that," and they take it and they sell it like a car salesman. They don't even know anything about it, but yet they use it and they sell it, and they hurt their students with it, and they say, "Oh, I'm sorry." That means you're taking their livelihood away. So, a lot of people that actually train really don't know what they're doing, and not all of them, but a lot of them that I've seen. And then you have coaches, and coaches, they go by the manual. We're going to do this, 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 and this. I said, well, what about that? No, 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 no. We're going to do this, and they stay with the manual because this is the program. This is what we're doing. And then you have teachers that will mirror your truth, and the teachers are, it's almost like you have somebody that actually truly that will teach you about you. Instead of teach you the same as how he teaches everybody, he mirrors your truth. That's a good teacher. And there's a lot of them who just spread it out.
Mhm.
And when you find a good mentor, which is a teacher, teaches you about you, hang on to them because they're hard to come by. But when they are out there, and there's a lot of them, but when you do find a mentor that mirrors your truth and turns you inside out, making you look at yourself and your own truth. That is, to me, a good teacher.
Very good. With training, so those people that are out there that are trying to figure out, hey, I want to train or I want to improve myself. Maybe they already have some training and they want to expand on their skill set. You talked about how to kind of assess if that person's a good teacher versus a coach or a trainer. What about like, is there any sort of specific skill set that you recommend that someone should have as a bare minimum for keeping themselves safe, or is it kind of like you said, their truth? Maybe they're a decent boxer. Do they need to start learning wrestling and ground fighting, or is there just something that you think like, if I had to teach my kid the bare minimum, here's what I'm going to teach them? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, when I work with somebody, and it doesn't matter whether it be a kid, whether it be a young adult, whether it be somebody older. I start mentally, first of all, because the mental part of it, teaching somebody, is first of all, I have to earn their trust. I'm not asking for their trust, I'm earning their trust. And once I earn their trust, so when I tell them, okay, mentally, and what it needs to be, what needs to happen, like a homework, because it starts mentally. 80% of it's mental. The I am constant, what are you telling yourself, which is important. The moment you open your eyes, what do you say? Oh, another day. Man, how am I going to get through this one? Oh, it's going to be. Or you get up and say, oh, thank you. Thank you, Maker. Thank you, God, for another day that I may be able to do the things I love doing, be with people I love being with. And I get this day. So it's important in the I am constant what you tell yourself when you first get up in the morning, because that starts your day on what you are going to do, and how you're going to do it. So the mental part is so important. And for the ones that don't meditate, I use what they call Tanjun is 3 meditations. I go into the concentration meditation where the mind, body, and soul is lined up. That's called the concentration meditation. Into a power meditation is what I have a workshop, is where only me and my maker can enter that workshop. And in my workshop, I have all my gifts that I came in this world with. It's like I was in my mother's womb and I knew exactly what I need to do coming into this world on my journey. I knew what I needed to heal, recorrect, and so forth. And so in this, I got reprogrammed by my first teachers, which is my parents, and they're teaching me all their emotions of fear and so forth. Why? Because they want to protect me. So by the time I'm 3 years old, I forget what I came in this world to do. And I started to forget. By the time I'm 3, I'm forgetting because I just been reprogrammed. By the time I'm 5, I've been reprogrammed by their emotions. And from 5 to 10, I have no experience because I had lost it in my mind. So I'm trying to. My mom said, "Don't touch that because you're gonna burn yourself." And I'm thinking, why? So I touch it and I burn myself. She said, "Didn't I just say not to do that?" Point is, I don't have the experience. So by the time I'm 10, I get it. So from 10, and by the time I'm 12 years old, hormones are changing, voices are changing. I got a couple of beautiful hairs. I'm a man now. I don't want to be told what to do. 15 years old comes, that's it. I'm set. But everything that I didn't like about my father, what he said to me and did to me, I said I would never do it to anybody. And I ended up doing exactly that to my friends, to my peers. So I realized the programming is what you've been taught. And the unconscious is very important, what you've been taught. So for the ones that've been taught that, then your journey is you find a mentor that will mirror your truth. All your emotions that you hide, he will bring it forward and help you heal those, that they may not stop you on your journey. That is the true martial arts. Is you can turn somebody inside out and make them look at themselves, because a lot of people don't want to hear it. They end up numbing it by getting loaded or drinking and stuff. They don't want to feel that. Why? Because it's painful. The truth is hurts, and you don't want to admit that. So we numb it until you find a mentor that teaches you how to heal all those wounds, that you may walk your journey more freer, with less fear, and taking a chance on you. And that's the key. When you stop loving yourself, eh, automatically, if you can't love yourself, how can you love anybody else or anything? So everybody uses that word love very lightly. Oh, I love that. Oh, I love you. I love this. Okay, I see you. But it's just a word unless you show action behind what you say. That is the true arts. Whether you call it martial arts, whether you call the art of life, is still the arts. And the art of war is mental,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's physical, and then it's spiritual. So all I got to
No,
say about that.
no, that's excellent. So it leads me actually to another thought as far as your journey with your mentors, the mentors that helped you out. You talked about your parents, but you've had other mentors throughout. Was there any time where you trained something and then you had an epiphany or a realization and said, "Oh, I need to change this tactic about how I go about not just fighting, but just relationships, on the street?" Because you said so yourself. You're not afraid of anybody. You're good with your maker. You live every day like to the fullest because it may be your last, and you're grateful for every single day. So because of that, was there anything that in your journey growing up from being a young man to an adult and fighting all the people you fought where you said, wow, I've been doing this where I could have done this better, or this mentor taught me not only to fight a certain way better, but also carry myself a certain way better? Was there any mentor that really stuck out to you?
Well, first of all, Mr. Parker was a very uh, big influence on me. But to really tell you the truth, who was my real hero was my mother.
Mm.
My mother knew exactly. She looked right through me, inside out, and she just, when I would say something, she would say, "Why are you saying that? Why don't you just tell me what you really feel?" And she just bust me, and I said, "Oh wow." She looked right through me, and so I realized that I had a chance to really just be really true to myself. Instead of, usually sometimes we don't want to hurt somebody's feelings, so we don't say the truth to them because we don't want to hurt their feelings, or we don't want to make them feel bad, so we polite. And the problem is with that, if you really love somebody, if you really care about somebody, it's not the truth, is when you say it. So, and it's not how you say it, is when you say it will make the difference. So if I had a friend and I needed to tell him something that he wouldn't like or she wouldn't like, I would look in their eyes and I can tell either they'll accept it or they won't. And if I see that they won't accept that and all they'll do, I'll just piss them off and they'll just walk away, and I'll lose the friendship. Why? Because I just needed to get off my chest. But if I really looked at them and I see that no, they're not ready to accept this, so I'm not going to say it. And then 3 hours later, it goes by, and I look in their eyes and I said, oh, maybe they'll accept it now. I can see that something's changed. And I said, you know what? I need to tell you something. Maybe you not might like it, but I need to say this to you. And they said, well, say it. And I say it, and then they said, you're right. I don't like it, but I respect it.
Mm.
So I realized that through my journey, it was truly Mr. Parker, and my mom was my mother, to tell you the truth, is my was she's no longer with us. But as far as I'm concerned, as I'm seeing you, talking to you, I can see my mother and I can talk to my mother daily. So she's in my heart. I keep her alive through our stories. However, she was a great mentor and my hero. Mr. Parker was also great philosopher, and also he was always. Matter of fact, he I was at the internationals, and I introduced my girlfriend, which is my wife now, and Mr. Parker. I said, Mr. Parker, this is my girlfriend, Sarah, la 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 la, and then he goes, so he puts his arm around me, and he turns my back from my wife, my girlfriend at the time, and he says to me, "She's a keeper." And I thought he was going to give me some philosophy, and I said, "He's a keeper." So I didn't say anything, and I turned back, and so my girlfriend at the time says, "What did he say?" I said, "I'm not sure what he said, but." And so she said, "Well, why don't you ask him?" I said, no, I don't want to bother him. This is ask him. So 3 hours later, go back. I got the courage to go and say, Mr. Parker, when you said, you know, to keep her, what does that mean, to keep her? He says, keep her. And I said, oh. I said, I thought you were going to give me some kind of philosophy, this and that. So, but anyway, so I mean, this is going on actually This will be our 50th anniversary, and
Mhm.
I believe that my wife played a big. As you can see, Duran will be behind me, and my wife, grandmother, her great great grandmother was Geronimo's uh, sister. So,
Wow.
and he was a great medicine man, and she was a great medicine woman, and her great grandmother was a medicine woman. Her grandmother was a medicine woman. Her mother was but she was too afraid of it, so it jumped past her. And my wife was groomed to be a medicine woman, very powerful, and she taught me a lot. She taught me actually, if anything, she would always mirror my truth daily,
Mhm.
daily mirror my truth, and here I try to be really clever and sly and this and that, and she just pulled my covers right from under me, and she just saw right through me. So therefore, I had three. My sister was a great. My sister Lily, she was very close to me, and she was the first woman to have a boxing title, the first woman to have a kickboxing title, and she already had a martial art title, and so she was very close to me. And between my sister, my wife, and my mother, between them three, hey, talking about a triangle of love, it was powerful. So I was in good hands.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's really cool that you say so because I definitely agree that our family really does influence us, and it sounds like the women in your life really influenced you. And I mean, obviously, like you mentioned before, I mean, you had in my opinion, super women. I mean, they were all super accomplished and go getters and talented individuals. And by the way, congratulations on running for your 50th. That's really
Yeah,
cool. I
thank you.
can't wait. I'm about to be 8 years in pretty soon with my family, and I have two little boys and one on the way that's going to be born in October. And so I can't wait. I mean, I'll take my time, but I'm excited at the idea of hitting my 50th one day as well. I think that's super cool. So as far as it goes with, one of the things I've noticed is that you definitely have thought a lot about the internal and spiritual and self revelation aspects when it comes to training, and I think that's super underutilized and underappreciated in today's day, where a lot of people are just focused on a kick or a punch and not thinking about what that means for you and an extension of self and how you influence others and get influenced. Um, so one of the things you have is you developed your own martial arts and kickboxing style of movement and system, and with that, between what you talk about as far as internal and mental and spiritual, and then the physical movements that you teach, can you talk a little bit about that style and why you made it, and what is kind of the main point of why you made it and what people can get from it?
Well, it's back in the 60s when I fought. Basically, I'm a good street fighter to begin with. And so I already knew what kind of emotions and it was the realness it was in the street. So I realized going into martial arts, fighting in tournaments, there was rules. So that became even more easier. But I realized, that in in the styles, I went from 9 different styles, from hard style to soft style to hard style to soft style, and I realized in the styles of martial arts, all I had to do is memorize the katas, the wazas, and grab arts, and the kicking is kicking, the punching is punching, the throwing is throwing, but it was just memorizing. And so I have, 9 different black belts in different styles from hard and soft, and I thought to myself, when I started kickboxing, well, at the time it was called full contact karate, in 73, and then I held that title up until 75. And when my brother said, called me a world champion, I said, how can I be a world champion? I haven't been outside the United States. He said, you want to fight? I said, you want to call me world champion? Yeah, I want to travel. And so they brought two Thai fighters from Thailand, and Ernest Hart fought the first one, which is semi, and I was the main event. And so my brother said, "You want to fight Muay Thai?" I said, "Yeah, I'll fight him." I really thought that was his name. I had no idea that was the style. And I said, "Yeah, I'll fight him." And um, so we get there. Ernest Hart fight night. I'm the main event. So I come out, and then the Thai champion comes out, and he's doing his prayer. I didn't know he was praying, so he was doing his dance of prayer. I had no idea what it was because I never saw it. So I started bobbing and weaving to his music that he was playing to, and all the Thai people think I'm making fun of him.
Oh.
And so he, at the end of it, he came and stimulated. He was shot an arrow at me, and I smiled and put thumbs up. He was pissed. Man, he was mad. And the bell rang, and I mean, I had Charlie horses before, but I've never had anybody try to break my legs. He came at me and hit me in the thigh. My eyes bulged out, and I said, "Holy man, that hurted." And then he tried to kick me again, and I'm a high jumper, so I'm jumping over his legs because I didn't know what to do. So the bell rings, and I tell my brother, "What do I do?" He says, "Kick him back." I said, "Oh yeah." I went back out there and I kicked him so hard, and he leg checked me. That hurted worse. Oh my God, my shins. I said that hurt. It was like me kicking solid iron with my shins. And then in the third round, I was telling my brothers, "You know what? Man, he smells, man. My eyes are burning." And so I see that they're spraying something on his shins, but my eyes are burning. And so we're going at it. And then he clinches me. Now, I don't know anything about, so all I can do is block with my hands and then strike his body, block with my hands. And finally, I didn't know what to do. And he was kneeing me, elbowing me, which all the Americans thought he was cheating because they never saw that kind of fighting before. So I picked him up. I'm a good judo man. I picked him up and I threw him on his head. Boom! He got back up and clinched me again. I picked him up and threw him again. Now all the Thai people are getting pissed. Why? Because they never seen that before.
Mhm.
And so now you got the Americans pissed off. You got the Thais pissed off. We're at the Olympic Auditorium, and so matter of fact, Chuck Norris was there and so forth. And they bet by the rounds. They don't bet who's going to win the fight. They bet who's going to win the round. By then, because I outscored him all the rounds, but we didn't know, or should I say, it's not we didn't know, but the referees didn't know, or the judges didn't know that thigh kicking was points, and elbows and knees were points. And this guy was elbowing me and going, all out on it. And far as I was kicking out, as far as I was concerned, I was beating him left and right. And so in the ninth round, um, I don't know if it was Chuck or one of that they were betting, and so in the ninth round, saying, "Hey, pay up." And the Thai guy jumped up in the seat, went to elbow, and he moved back and slipped, and he hit the ground. But he didn't. He didn't get hit. He just slipped. He got back up, and the fight started. It went up like the bleachers and all the way around, and everybody was fighting everybody. And then I stopped because I was afraid my mother, my sister, and I can see that they were taking her, upstairs out of the arena, and they were. I mean, each side they were tipping cars over. Helicopters came, so that was the first of where I first uh, actually felt or experienced Muay Thai kickboxing,
Hmm.
and from there. In Japan, they wanted to know who's this American just beat the Thai champion. And so they took 5 of us to Japan. 4 got stopped, and obviously they thought I got stopped. And I was wearing long pants, and they said you have to wear shorts. I said I'm a martial artist. I wear gi bottoms, and they said you have to wear shorts. I said I'm not fighting. If I can't wear it, I said I picked up my pant leg. I said, see, I have no metal or nothing underneath it. It's just gi. Okay? And so finally they said, what the heck? They thought I was going to get knocked out anyway. I ended up knocking him out. Suzuki, I knocked him out. So they couldn't accept that. 2 months later, they brought another champion in. I went back over there. I ended up knocking him out. The rest is history from that because they couldn't believe what was I doing so different that I could knock them out. And that's when I said, you know what, my system was called Kimpo Shotokan, which was my family's system. And so what I learned from kickboxing was completely different because I thought I was in the streets. I thought, hey, because when I was over in Japan, there was no rules. There
Hmm.
was no rules. So they were introducing the WK rules when my brother Arnold and Howard Hansen started the rules, and they looked at the rules and they put thumbs up. But when the bell rang, there was no rules, and that's when I realized when you're in a different country, there is no rules. When that bell rings, yeah, I'm in the streets, and I'm good in the streets. So therefore, uh, to me, I was at home with that, and they couldn't believe that how this American go out there and beat. So next year I know it, I was beating them one after another, and so I wrote the book, okay, because full contact karate, when in '75, people said, "What's full contact karate?" As they thought it was some kind of mill or something. And I said, well, and somebody say like you're boxing and then you add your legs, or someone say you're kicking and then you boxing. And I said, yeah, well, kickboxing. And it rung. I said, ooh, kickboxing. That sounds pretty good. So in '78, I wrote the first kickboxing book. I went around the world, leaving my book so that way I can make an international sport. And kickboxing became very big, and then from there, in the Gracies came in the late '80s, early '90s, bringing ground fighting, and I was already in '74. I was already getting out of it, and then that started to kick in, and it was called mixed martial arts, and then from '75 to 2000. Cage fighting came in, and it went like wildfire. So,
Hmm.
little history of it.
Yeah, it's cool to see the progression and how it all kind of gets to the point where it is now. So with the kickboxing system that you developed, if I'm saying it correctly, it's Ukitokon. Is that correct?
Yes, Yukitokon.
Ukitokon. So with Ukitokon, when you're teaching someone Ukitokon, is it? I mean, is it your like Benny the Jet style of kickboxing, or when you're teaching it, like what makes Ukitokon when you're teaching?
Well, first of all, Yukitokon means a way of life.
Mhm.
Second of all, because I designed it because I realized in the street there's no rules, and when you're in the ring outside the country there is no rules. So I said, okay. So I created Yukitokon and took of each style from Taekwondo. I took the kicking and I modify it for combat. In the trapping of Kimpo, I used the trapping of Kimpo, eh? And I modified it. And all the systems I learned, I took the best they had to offer and modify it for combat. That means under pressure. That means if somebody's going to come, I was able to use it for real instead of saying, "Oh, this is going," because somebody had told one of my senseis had said, "If I use this kick, be careful with it because you can kill somebody." Well, when I was out there in a different country, to me, there was no rules, and they were really trying to hurt me. So I used this kick and I hit him, boom, and this guy's standing looking at me, and I said, "Well, I thought that I'm supposed to hurt him with this," and he's just looking at me like I said, "Sheesh." So all that they told me about this, these different movements, that they're deadly, but when I really used a lot of them, they did not work. It did not work the way they told me, and I said, maybe I'm doing something wrong with it, this and that. Then I start realizing, hey, they look good, they're flashy, but when it comes to pressure, when somebody's throwing pressure, in other words, if somebody threatens you, everything you hide under your bed in your closet will come up.
Mhm.
Anger, fear, frustration, anxiety, they all come up when you're threatened. So I designed Yukitokon to be threatened. Okay? And so when you're threatened, all that emotion comes up, and then you learn to heal those emotions so they don't stop you when you're in the ring. So I had a great kickboxing team and took them. There were 7 champions underneath me, and we just went around the world showing, and that's when I wrote the first Yukitokan book, so I can introduce Yukitokan kickboxing to the world instead of Muay Thai, because in the Orient everybody knew about Muay Thai, but nobody knew about kickboxing. So I wrote the first kickboxing book. I have 7 books, but that was the first to
Mhm.
introduce it to the world.
No, that's awesome. And that makes a lot of sense too, is like, trying to make sure that what you apply for kickboxing is actually going to work for the street. And that's one of the things that I think is, you hit the nail on the head with it, was the idea that there are just some things that are taught that just don't work, under pressure. And so from what I've seen from Yukitokon, it seems like you've tried very hard to make it so that it works. It works well. It's pressure tested, and people can apply it universally. And I think that's super cool. So this is this is actually a question where I'm curious about my dad years ago, and maybe you can dispel the truth versus the legend of it. But there was a lot of uh, rumor from my dad where you had gone into a match internationally that actually ended up, you didn't realize was like more or less a death match. Is that something that ever happened, where like you got caught in one where you didn't realize that was what it was? And then was there anything like that? Can you kind of talk about that experience, or if that's true or not?
Well, first of all, that was in Hong Kong.
Hmm.
And back then in the days, in the 70s, believe me, to me, I was fighting against an opponent.
Mhm.
To them, they were fighting against a country.
Oh.
And so that was the difference back then. So their athletes of their country was the backbones of their country.
Mhm.
But I didn't go there for that. I went there to compete against the best of their opponent. And so this champion in Hong Kong, uh, basically, when we're actually, I was doing an interview for a movie, and I was in Hong Kong, and this guy in the audience jumps up, and just like Johnny Carson's over there, over there, and I'm doing an interview with it, and this guy jumps up from the crowd, and he's saying in Chinese. Well, I don't know what he said, but whatever he said in Chinese. So my interpreter says to me, he says, "You are an actor. You are not a real fighter." And he challenges you to the death. You accept. And I said, what? I said, tell him I fight for a living. That's what I do for a living. I fight for real for a living. And so he told him, and then the guy starts screaming again, la la la. And so he says that he don't believe you're just an actor, and he challenged you to death. Do you accept? And I said, hey, for the money, I'll fight anybody. All because I was on national TV there. I didn't want, what was I going to say? I didn't have no. So I made a joke and say, hey, for the money, I'll fight anybody. And so the guy takes off. So he tells him, the guy takes off. I don't hear nothing about it. So after it's over with, you have two Chinamen come, and after we're drinking, having some soft drinks, and he said, and so in broken English, he says, how much do you want to fight him? I said, what are you talking about? He said, he challenged you. How much do you want to fight him? And I said, well, I don't know. I said, this is all new to me, this and that. And he said, okay, we come back. So to me, I forgot all about it. And then I go back to the hotel in Kowloon Side, beautiful hotel. And they're there at the hotel. And they said, what do you want to fight him? And it's almost like I felt like I was in pressured, and I said, just right off the bat, I said, I want $50,000. I don't know. I said, you know what? Come back and let me think about it. So they left. I'm walking around and I'm thinking, what do I want? So I'm walking and I see these beautiful mink fur jackets in the store. And so I went in there and I said, how much is this? And they told me. I said, can you write that down on a piece of paper for me? He said, sure. And he gave it to me. And I'm thinking as I'm walking, okay, I'm going to show these guys. And I figure out I'm going to ask for this, and they'll just forget about it. So these guys come back at 11 o'clock. I forgot all about it. They come knock on my door. I opened up the door like, what? And he says, so what do you want? And I invited him in. I said, I want $50,000. I want this jacket. If I want 15% if it's TV. I want. They said no TV. And I said okay. And I want if you're going to do any commercials or anything. I want them. They said no commercial, no. And I said okay. Well, I said I need. Give me at least 2 weeks, and I'll come back. And he says no, tomorrow. I said tomorrow what? He said tomorrow you fight. I said, what? He said, tomorrow you fight. I said, no way. And then I said, you know what? Let me think about it. They left, and I thought to myself, well, to me, I thought maybe it's just an exhibition. In my mind, maybe it's just an exhibition. And I'll go out there, I mean, for $50,000, and, if they give me what I'm asking for, for an exhibition, usually I do an exhibition, and, for practically nothing, I said, why not? So they come back and I told them, okay, that's what I want. The next day they came, they brought the fur, they put the money and this and that, and they said, we come back at 7 o'clock tonight. So I'm thinking, man, I don't have any, I have usually like pair of gloves, and I have, I didn't have too much in it, so I went to a sports store, and I bought a mouthpiece, and I bought some hand wraps, and I bought some tape. I bought a cup because I didn't have any of that,
Yeah.
and so I figured, all right, well, and I got gloves. So what happened is, so sure enough, they came for me, big beautiful limousine, and so I bought a little bag, and I put the stuff in the bag. And so I'm telling them, so when am I going to fight? Am I fighting last? Am I fighting in the middle? Am I fighting first? And they said, okay, no problem. I said, I know there's no problem. When am I going to fight? Am I the main event? Am I what? What are we going to, because I'm thinking exhibition. So, and they said, okay. And I said, oh man, these guys don't know what I'm saying, man. So I tried to make small talk with them, and they didn't. And next you know, we go under the bridge, and now we're going into the Hong Kong side. We're in the Kowloon side, which is very modern, up to date. Yeah, so, and they took me I went under the bridge, and we went to the side where it was, we went up the hills and this and that. And I'm thinking, well, where is this? I've never been to this arena. Where's the arena at this? And they said, okay. And I said, you know what? This guy, man, don't know what he's talking. So I just shut up and I said, the heck with it. And so I see from a distance a building with a light, but I see no cars. I said, well, where's all the cars? I said, well, where's all the people? And I don't see anybody. And then I see this guy, huge, man, in 007, that big Chinese with the hat, that's who he was standing in front of the door. He looked like him. It was just huge. And so I get my bag, we get out, and we're walking toward it. And so I'm trying to make small talk to him, like, so how is this going to work? And they said, okay. And I said, you know what? Just get it over with. So I stopped asking questions. And I look at this guy, and this guy just looks at me, man, you can see it in his eyes. I said, damn, this this guy looks like a junkyard dog, man, though, with his eyes, man. I said, and they open up the door, and I walk in, and I see this, like cage going up in a triangle, and there's seats all the way around it, and I'm hearing all these voices, and I say, well, where did all these people come from? And they're all talking, and they saw me, and they're all going, shh, 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 shh. I'm hearing whatever they're saying. Didn't understand what they were saying anyway. So I didn't have to whisper anything because I didn't understand it. So I'm trying to tell them, okay, where am I going to go? Am I going to be in a dressing room with some other fighters? And they said, come on, come on. They take me in this room, like it looked like a closet. I get in this closet, and there's a chair. So I figured, you know what? I'm just going to get it over with. And so I asked him, is there going to be a doctor coming in to check my hand? And he said, no, 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 no. So I figured, the hell with it. So I wrapped my hands and I put tape. Since there was nobody, and I mean, it was like a brick. It was like a hammer. And I figured if they come and say something, okay, I'll take it off. But if not, man, I had two hammers going. And so they come back and they open the door and they said, okay, okay. And so I go out. So I'm trying to talk to them like, okay, well, what corner am I? And so we go in between these gates, and it's a square. And there's seats all the way around it, and it's going upward with people. And I'm thinking, where the hell all these people come from? And next thing I know, they open up this wooden door that was maybe 5 feet, opens up, and I go in, and the door closes. So I tell the guy, who's going to referee or who's going to corner me? And they said, I said, I just need water. He said, okay, I give you water. I said, well, who's the referee? He said, I referee. And I said, you're going to referee and give me water? I said, forget it. I said, so there's a square. I said, so where do I go? And he said, okay, you go there. So I went across from this guy, and this guy's back toward me, and this other guy is talking to him, and there's another guy blowing a towel on him, like air throwing, and I'm thinking, okay, yeah. So automatically the horn went, ah, and he turns around, he puts his hands up and says, to the death. And I just thought that's something he just says. I said, okay. So I go out there and I'm jumping around and everybody's yelling and screaming and I'm just moving around and I'm throwing and this guy's coming at me. He's trying to elbow me and so forth. My first kick, I kicked him anyway, I kicked him in the face and his cheekbone popped and his eye got swollen. He couldn't even see. It was huge. And so I told the referee, he can't see, stop the fight, stop it. He can't see. And the guy came at me, started to elbow me, and I moved. And I said, oh, you still want to go? Okay. And I just hit him, boom, right in that eye. That same eye was big. I hit him again, boom. He just body this, and then the horn went, ah. And he turns around, and I'm about to, he just turns around and walks away from me, going back. And I said, oh, shoot. So I go to the opposite side, and I'm standing up, and I'm telling the referee, water. And somebody taps me in the back. I turned around, and he gives me some beer. And I looked at him. I said, no, that's okay. Forget it. And next thing I know it went, this guy turns around, and he goes, to the death. Now I heard him clearly, and it made me uncomfortable. Now I'm getting uncomfortable because I don't know what's going on. So next thing I know, he comes at me. I had his arm pinned on my neck and had him pinned, and I was hitting his body. And I heard something go. I knew I busted his ribs, and I threw him on the ground. And I'm standing over him, and I'm yelling and screaming at him. I said, "Stay in the ground, or I'm going to hurt you and send you to the hospital. Stay there." And I'm yelling and screaming at him. And I looked up. I looked around, and people are doing this to me, and I'm looking all the way around, and I was straddled him, and I got off from straddling, and I'm looking around, and I don't know what they were saying. So the guy, his guy jumps over, picks him up, and then the bell rings, and they take him there, and he's holding ribs. So I'm trying to tell the referee, he can't see, he can't breathe, stop the fight. Stop it. He can't breathe. He can't know. And the guy was looking at me like saying, okay, okay. And I said, I felt like hitting him, like, you sucker, man. You don't know, you don't have no idea what the heck You know, you don't even know, you're just here, just here. You don't even know what you're doing. So I'm thinking all these things in my head, and people, and I started, instead of turning my back on the people, I'm looking at the audience, and they're out there, and they're they're making all kinds of different signs of their hands and doing, it's almost like they're doing this to me and whatever. And I'm looking at them like, and I'm smiling because I don't know what's going on. I don't understand them and their body language. And, I can imagine what they were saying with their body language. It's almost like they were doing this to me. And next thing I know it, the horn went, and by then he turned around and said to the death again. By then, it went right. I heard him clearly, and it went right to the spine of my back. And I said, "All right, you wanna come at me? I'm thinking this. All right, come on." He came, but he didn't come as fast because his ribs, and his face, his eye like this. I went at him. I jump kicked him. I started striking at him. I picked him up. I threw him on the ground. I stomped him, and I went to strike him on the ground, and I looked at him, and he couldn't breathe. His nose was busted. His eyes was closed. He couldn't see. He had a big knot on his forehead, and his eyes was closed, and he couldn't breathe. And so I didn't know what to do. So I got off him. And everybody's screaming and this and that. And so I did a victory backflip. I didn't know what else to do. So I just did a victory backflip, and I put up my hands, and they started throwing things, yelling, and I don't know what they were saying. And the referee, whoever that guy was, he grabs me, takes me out, puts me back, puts me back inside that dressing room. And I don't know what's going on, but I'm hearing all this noise on the outside. So I figure I'm in a fighting stance. Look at the door. I figure whoever comes in there, I'm gonna down him. I don't care. I'm gonna down him. If he comes in that door, I'm gonna down him. And then suddenly the door opens up. I was just gonna strike, and he's waving me, come, come, come. So I go. They put me in the limo, and I thought I was in there, for just a moment, but it was hours I was in there. I didn't realize how long I was in there. They went, got my stuff. They put me in the limo. My suitcase, my money, everything was there, and they took me uh, to the airport. And to the airport, I'm on the plane with a T-shirt with blood on it, and I'm thinking, what the hell just happened? I had no idea what happened. I said, and so I got home. My wife picked me up from the airport. I had the mink jacket, and so I said, "You're not gonna believe what happened." And she said, "Well, what's that? What's that? Did you have a nosebleed?" And I said, "This blood is not mine." And she said, "What happened?" So she's driving home, and she said, "What's in there?" I said, "It's a jacket for you." And she pulled over. She all excited. She opened it up. "Oh, this is so beautiful, mink, and this and that. How did you get this and this and that?" And I said, "You're not going to believe what happened." And then I pulled out the money, and she said, "Where'd you get that from?" Now she's concerned. Did I rob somebody? What did I do?
Yeah.
I got this fur jacket, mink jacket, and I got this money, and I got blood on my shirt. So she's looking at me like, "What did you do?" And so I said, "Let's get home. Once we get home, I'll tell you." And I told her, "You know what?" She said, she didn't even put the jacket on. She said, "Get rid of it." And she said, "Get rid of that money, get rid of that jacket, burn that shirt." And I'm thinking. And so I kept quiet. And I told my brother what happened. And they couldn't believe it. He said, "No way." I said, "I'm telling you, brother, that's what happened." And so, and I said, "You don't believe me?" And I showed him the money. And I showed him I said, "I have to get rid of it." He said, "Give it to me." He said, "Man, I'll take it." And I said, "Brother, it's yours. It's yours. But don't say where you got it. It's yours." So gave my brother the mean jacket, and I gave him the money. I said, I don't want any of it." And so my brother, after a while, he kept on saying, he said, that really bothered you, didn't it? I said, yeah, man, I can't get it out of my head. I can't, So for a whole year, it was stuck in me, you know. Like I was sleeping with this, thinking, going over and over in my head. Man, I can't believe that just happened. I can't believe that this guy wanted to fight me. I said, I wonder if it was the other way. I wonder if he would have killed me if I was on the ground and I couldn't move and I couldn't breathe. I wonder what he would have did to me. And so it was hard. So my my wife said, "Why don't you tell somebody?" And I said, "Nah, you know what? It's nobody's business. This and that." And so a couple of years go by. My brother said, "You know what? You need to get this out of your system. Say it." And so my oldest brother said, "Say it." So finally, I told, I did an interview, and I didn't talk in detail, but I talked what happened. And I felt better after I talked about what happened. And so after that, then I forgot about it. So that was, and then I thought, so when they want to take me to a third world country, and they're saying, I said no. So I had a manager. I said, my manager's coming. I said, I don't want no more of this. I said, my manager's coming, la 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 la. And sure enough, in Japan, my brother, my manager and I, they try to set me up. And I won't talk about who, but they try to set me up. And my manager and I, they split us apart. They split us up, and they try to convince me, and they try to pay him big money for me to fight this guy. But it was a setup. This guy was training automatically, and they just couldn't accept me beating. So they set me up and this and that. But instead of going to the fight, my uh, my manager and I, we actually left. We left, went to the airport, and they were waiting for us there. So we took a taxi. We went to another airport on the outside of the country and took a plane, went home, and my brother came pounding in the next morning, pounding on my door saying, "Hey, tell me everything." I said, "Man, brother, man, you sounded like a police officer trying to break my door." And he says, and he grabbed me by the throat, sat down. He said, "Tell me everything that happened in Japan." I said, "What are you talking about? Tell me." So I told him. I said, "They try to set me up." And my manager and I, uh, we left, and we just took off. He said, "Put on a suit, get a suit, put it on. We're going back." I said, "I ain't not going back." And he looked at me and he said, "I'm gonna tell you one more time. Get a suit. We're going back." And I said, "Oh shoot, here we go." And got a suit. And my brother and I went back, and I had to go up there because I didn't know it was a family that ran, that. So my brother knew the families over there, and for some reason they set it up to where I had to go over there and apologize, got on my knees and apologized for leaving. And I made an excuse that somebody in my family passed away, and very close to me, I had to leave, and I apologize, and I will fight anybody you want to fight, and all the money will go to your charity and such and such. And this guy just looked at me, and he just nodded. That's it. He just gave me a nod, and he got up and he left. So I left. I came back, and I fought. I fought this guy they wanted me to fight. I stopped him in the second round. And so the money I gave to him and all my fans there, they gave me all these flowers. I thought I was in the funeral. They gave me all these flowers. And this and that. I said, well, my brother said, "Well, what do we do with all the flowers?" I don't know. Give them away to somebody. So he says, "We got all these envelopes from your fans." And he said, "What do you want me to do?" I said, "Brother, you don't read Japanese. I don't read Japanese. Throw them away." So he threw them in the trash can, and then he got one. He said, "Let me just see what it looks like." He opened it up, and there was yen in it. And he started opening them up. He said, "I made more money from my fans with all this yen than they were going to give me anyway."
Mm.
And so, anyway, I realized when you go to a third world country, the families that run it can't say no. And it's really, when they look at you like a racehorse, you know, and
Hmm.
that's what they look at me, an undefeated racehorse, and they want to own it. So that's just the way my life was in the fight game.
Sure. No, that's incredible. I mean, just the different experiences that you had, and like I said, I was very curious just because that to me, and you brought it up a little bit in talking about it, was like the transition of going and thinking, hey, this is going to be an exhibition, and then turning around and going, wait, this is not an exhibition, or you start doubting yourself, and that can be pretty unnerving. And then you talked about how you were in there, like in that little closet area, ready to have to fight your way out because there was so much of an uproar because they were expecting one way and you were not willing to go through that, like, and actually finish that guy off. And then, other people in other families trying to do the same thing, like you said, you're a racehorse, and as a fighter and as an undefeated one, it's very easy for someone to want to see if they can own it and control it. One of the things that and we're about at that time for this interview, so I just like to ask one more thing, and then we'll wrap it up. And that is there anything that in all your experience, if you could give just one set of advice for someone who is wanting to learn to protect themselves, improve themselves internally, externally, and all that, what are just a tip or two that you would give to that person listening? And then we'll go into talking about where people can find you in the future and learn from you. So, do you have any advice for those listeners that, as far as learning self defense and martial arts for the future?
You know, when it comes down to it, if any advice I can give watchers or people that are listening and so forth, truly it's about your belief system. What do you believe? And if you believe you can't, you're right, you can't because you believe that. If you think, if you have a doubt, hey, you can't do it because you doubt yourself. You even think about, I wonder if I could do that. Just thinking it weakens you. So we're all gifted in our own way to be very powerful. As a woman sees her kid underneath a car trapped, and she will pick up that car, and how? She don't even know. All she knows, she needs to pick up that car. So your belief system is so important in what you believe, because the I am concept of what you tell yourself in the morning is so important. That is the beginning of martial arts. And what do you believe? And so, if I give this to anybody out there, your power is your belief system. And where you get your power is in what I call a workshop of your meditation, creating a workshop where only you and your maker can go in there and grab this power, as that woman can lift up that car. So, your belief system, if anything I can give you, work on your belief system, work on your truth, mirror your truth. Because again, you become magical. So be the magic that you believe that you are.
Very good. Well, Sensei Benny, as far as I know, you have a website and I know you have programs. I actually, believe it or not, had ordered your DVD set on Yukitokon so I could work on it myself and actually get really in depth with what you're teaching. I know for a fact that myself, I'm actually making it a goal, so long as you are teaching, to actually go down to the Woodland area and actually train with you, because that is a goal of mine. It's always been a goal of mine. So we can talk about, how that can work in the future. But for people who are listening, where's the best place that they can find you and learn more about you, and maybe even learn from you?
Well, I'm in Woodland Hills. I'm in Woodland Hills teaching. It's TKC, which is Team Karate Center, and that's off DeSoto and Victory. However, also in go karts. Now, go kart is world champion. I mean, he is a master when it comes to the ground. I've never had any type of ground. I mean, I thought I was a good grappler until I went to go karts, and let me tell you, he is definitely a master when it comes to the ground. And so I had the best of both worlds, which I'm the world champion of stand up, and he's the world champion of ground. And put it together, you cannot go wrong. And he's in North Hollywood. You can find him on the website of Go Kart. I mean, he's everywhere, anyways. But those are the two places that I highly recommend to find your truth of warfare, that you will know there is no question of a doubt. There's nothing you cannot do.
Very good. And then last but not least, do you have a website that people can go to find you for more information?
Absolutely, BennyTheJet.com. So I mean, usually, it's really easy to find me. I have nobody has problems finding me around the world and on my website. So just do up Benny the Jet, and from there, it will take you from one step to the next, and hopefully for the ones that do click into me, welcome to a new beginning.
Well, Sensei Benny, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences, your wisdom, and some of the things that people can learn and apply today. And I hope those that are listening that they follow Sensei Benny's advice as far as following their truth, mirroring that truth, and working towards improving themselves in the future. And hopefully for those that are listening, I encourage you to go check out Sensei Benny's website at bennythejet.com. And if you guys are in that Woodland area or North Hollywood area, go check out those locations that he referred to. And we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Sensei Benny, thank you so much. And I hope you have a good rest of your day, brother.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode with Sensei Benny. I myself had an absolute blast. It was an honor and a privilege to be able to interview the man who has accomplished so much and has actually brought a lot of eyeballs and opportunity for martial artists everywhere as far as getting exposure. As you know, and what he mentioned in the interview is he is one of the founding fathers of kickboxing. He really brought it to the forefront. He was one of the original people that actually experienced mixed martial arts back when it actually was mixed martial arts, where you had one fighting style against another. And just all those things combined, it's just amazing to actually get his take on self-defense and his take on personal protection and how you can actually marriage your mindset along with your training to get the best opportunity and outlook possible on your day-to-day life. Again, if you're interested in anything that he has to offer, the best place to go check him out is bennythejet.com. The link will be in the description below. You can obviously look him up on YouTube. Just type in Benny the Jet Urquidez, and you will get a myriad of different videos where you can watch his fights in full bore, as well as Benny the Jet Urquidez fight scene or Benny the Jet and Jackie Chan. That is where you can watch the full fight for Wheels on Meals, which is his most famous one. He's also been involved in the choreography and stunt work for Roadhouse. So a myriad of different movies and opportunities to really just take in what this guy has done and accomplished. And with that, guys, train today, protect tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching this and listening to this episode. I will catch you guys next time.